Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to another of our Queen Rearing for 2017 series. And today we're going to take a look at the way that we're going to produce our queens, in as much as we're using the cell builder colony, but the queen cells are now going to be ready to move on from that, and I wanted to show you the setup that we're using this year, and it involves queen mating nukes. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. We've got previous videos in the queen rearing series, but we've also got a series for beginner beekeepers which is called Getting Started, and we have our usual beekeeping basics series that we also run. And within a week or two we'll have an apiary set up using commercial polyhives that have been given to us by the Maysmore Apiaries company. But for today I wanted to take a look at the queen mating nukes, how we use them and how we stock them ready to put queen cells in them. There are many different ways of using them. There are many different types on the market. There's the Apidea style, which is the smaller dark brown box. There's one from Man Lake, and this has been very kindly sent over to us by Bee Equipment in the UK. They are an online supplier of beekeeping equipment, and from a previous video you'll recall that they sent us a range of equipment to try out, and we're now starting to use some of the queen rearing equipment that they've supplied us. So through today and some of the following videos we'll be showing you some of the equipment that you can get from Bee Equipment. The web address for them I'll put in the description below, and I'll also put links to the equipment that we've got here so that you can go across and take a closer look at it. But this is a Man Lake queen mating nuke, which we'll take a look at in a moment. But I wanted to start with our main set of queen mating nukes, and these are based on the Warnholtz or Keeler. I think these are probably Keeler. There's nothing actually stamped on them to say, but we purchased these again online in the UK, and again I'll put some links down in the description below. But I'll just show you what's involved. There's lots of people using queen mating nukes successfully, and there's no reason why you can't use half a dozen of these to produce some decent queens without having to break down an entire colony if you've only a few beehives of your own. So let's take a closer look at one. You can see that we've painted the fronts different colours. They're polystyrene, they're expanded polystyrene, and so we've painted them all with smooth masonry paint, similarly to the, in fact it's the same paint as we used for the Maysmore commercial polyhives. And inside you'll find that it's set up with 4 little top bars, and these simply have a strip of wax inserted into them, and you just run a small amount of molten wax into the groove in the top bar and then insert a small piece of foundation into it. And you can use any foundation that you've got spare. These happen to be from some broken foundation sheets that were wired, and so we've simply cut out some shapes to put in and use them. The bees will get onto that and draw them very quickly. It doesn't matter that they've got jagged edges, but what I would say is if you're using foundation that is wired, then just remove the wire strips first and don't include the wire strips in these small mating nukes. So we've got 4 of these little top bars, and then in the back we've got a feeding section, and this is a tub that you can use either fondant or sugar syrup in. If you're transporting them ready to add bees, then it's probably as well to use fondant so that the syrup doesn't slosh around everywhere. But if you've got them in place, then you can add the bees in, set them up, and then you can just pop the lid off and top that up with sugar syrup. But it's important that you keep that well topped up, because the bees will put comb in that feeder area, and if you allow them, the queen that's newly mated will pop in and start laying eggs in that comb as well. One of the things that I really like about this style of mating nuke is that the feeder block comes out completely, and that enables you to add additional top bars. So you can get 2 additional top bars in here, which will expand the range of which you can leave a mated queen in here. So once they're out foraging and you've got good weather, you can take out that feeder block and you can use it with 6 top bars in. But ultimately you want to try and move the queens out into nukes or into colonies that you're replacing the queens with reasonably quickly. So let's just pop this back in here. One of the things that I have noticed with it is that you do tend to get bees up and above the top bars because there's no mini crime board as such, that sometimes they can stick the roof down onto these top bars. And one of the things that you'll find in some of the other queen mating nukes is that they supply you with a small sheet of perspex to act as a crime board. So what I did was I popped out and bought some perspex sheeting and created my own. And this sits on top, and all I've done is drilled a hole through this piece of perspex so that I can push a queen cell through the hole and not disturb the bees beneath. And then when I'm not using that, I've got a little flap that I stuck on with a piece of tape just to keep that covered. But when you put the lid on, there is a small bee space just around the inside here, so the bees can get up and across, and they are likely to either use comb or propolis to stick the lid down onto the top bars. So we're going to try some without the perspex crime board cover sheet, and we're going to try some with the plastic, and we'll see how we get on, and we'll report back later. So that's in place, the lid goes on, and then round the front we've got a simple disc entrance which fits in with a small screw, and then you've got a narrow space for workers only, so that should restrict the queen and won't allow the queen to get out. You've got a ventilation area, so just a few small holes to allow the bees to circulate some air through, and then you've got an open hole which allows everyone in and out. So that's fine. And then on the bottom we've got a sliding plastic insert that fits underneath, and that just slides in to here. If I just turn the box over, hopefully you'll be able to see this a little bit better. It's got 2 strips of ventilation channels, so air can be circulated through, but it's also got these 2 holes at the front, and these are to allow the bees access to the mating nuke from below. So if I turn this over, if you find that the bees are being pestered by wasps, for instance, once you've got this bottom tray in place with it level at the front, if you've got the disc open but you're having wasp issues, you can swivel that round to the ventilation position, and then on the bottom you can push the bottom insert back to allow just worker bees to escape through these 2 slots, or you can push it back fully, and that will allow free access for both workers, drones and queens. Otherwise, have it in the forward position, and that will prevent anything from either entering the mating nuke or from coming out from the mating nuke. So the way that we fill these is, having got the top bars and the fondant in place, we pop the lid on, and we'll show you this in a short while. We take a cup full of bees, turn the box upside down, withdraw the sliding base so that it exposes the bottom completely, and because we've got fresh strips of foundation in there, it leaves a really large area inside, so there's quite a large volume in there. And then we take a cup of bees and throw the bees inside, and then push the sliding base back into position, and that traps the bees inside. Those bees can then sit in the queen mating nuke for 24 to 48 hours quite happily in the shade, and we'll show you where we've got the bees set up for mating. Keep them in the shade, and then once they've had a little bit of time in there, you can then open up the front entrance and allow the bees to come out, orientate themselves to the front entrance, and then you can either just allow the bees to continue about their business until you're ready to put a queen cell in, or when you set them up you can put the queen cell in at that time. You don't have to wait until the bees have started to draw comb before you put a queen cell into them. So that's our preferred queen mating nuke. But we've not tried the Man Lake mating nuke box, and it's going to be really interesting to see how we get on with this. So the first thing to say is, again, there's no mini coverboard inside the top. At the front it's got quite a nice ventilation area, whereas on the ones we've got the ventilation is mostly at the bottom and just a small area on that entrance disc. This has a really large area at the top for ventilation, and on the bottom it's also got a ventilation area, but again, by comparison to the style that we currently use, it's a slightly smaller area, but it will allow for good ventilation to flow through the entire mating nuke box. So the entrance is actually hidden at the moment by this polystyrene sliding block at the front. So if I try to lift this up, and so the entrance is currently covered up by this sliding polystyrene block at the front, and that simply slides up. I probably ought to paint this section as well, but then you've got the entrance there. So it slides up and down depending on whether you want the bees to have access or not. So that's quite a nice design. Inside you have the small frames which have got little plywood sides to them but no base, and these have got actually some plastic foundation sheets inside, and there are 3 of those. So we've got the 3 top bars. Then at the back we've got a small plastic queen excluder, and that will stop the queen from getting into that feeder section. And then right at the back we've got the separate feeder section. So we're going to try this one out this afternoon along with the ones that we've got, and we're going to see how they work, and we'll get back to you on how effective they are. In this one we're going to use some sugar syrup. In most of these we'll use fondant because that's what we tend to use, but we have some that we'll set up with some sugar syrup as well, and just show you how that performs. And its filling is exactly the same principle. The bottom base section slides out, and then you've got an opening where you can throw the bees in, and then simply slide this back into position to allow the bees to just settle down. So, as I said earlier, there are many different types available on the market. These are just some that we happened to get a few years ago, and we've tried and enjoyed using them. I'm quite keen to try this one. It's smaller size, so we could actually use quite a lot more of these boxes in the space that we have for raising queens, so that could be a positive use for them. These ones, as you can see, stack quite nicely. I like to change the colour on the front to give the bees and the virgin queen something to orientate to. And we've also got in our queen mating area a shelving setup where we can angle the boxes in different directions so that they're not set out in a straight line, and hopefully that will avoid any drifting that could occur. You don't want to have a queen coming back from a mating flight only to drift into another queen mating nuc box and be destroyed. So we'll show you that when we go across and fill these up with bees, and we'll show you that in another video where we're going to fill these up with bees and insert some queen cells from the first batch of Miller method queen cells that we've been showing you in the recent queen rearing series. I hope you found that interesting. Please do leave any questions you have in the comments section below. We'll be posting the videos as we go through on a week-by-week basis. The queen rearing videos will be coming out on a Sunday evening on YouTube. For our Patreon supporters, the videos will come out as soon as I can process them, so if you want to catch up with the videos as we release them, then go over to our Patreon site and take a look at that, and you'll see the videos there as we release, which is generally every 2 or 3 days. Again, I'll put the details in the description below, and please do take a few moments just to pop over there and take a look. Don't forget that we've also got our Twitter and Instagram feeds, which is Norfolk Honey Co. or at Norfolk Honey Co. And we've also got our Facebook group, which is Stuart's Beekeeping Basics. It's a group that supports beekeepers of all abilities, but particularly aimed at the beginner beekeeper, where you can ask any question regarding beekeeping, and hopefully we'll be able to give you an answer from within the group. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.